you coming so many people. It's really fantastic, you know, having such young enthusiastic scientists looking at ways to do daily stuff, because coffee drinking for everybody is a daily thing. And for those of you who know me, we know we're all passionate about technology, we like science, we like to, you know, explore scientific experiments, and this is all great. But we all know as well, sometimes we do science for the science sake, to even maybe satisfying ourselves, you know, how smart we are. Well, at the end of the day, whatever we do has to be somehow for something. And you know, one of the things which I was already fascinated, you know, with coffee, even before Azure and I met, you know, I wanted to show the difference between the different colored capsules from Nespresso, you know, George Clooney Nespresso, everybody knows. What I thought was great is that they have different colors, and that's, I don't need to do sample prep, I just make a coffee here and coffee there. I like to see the differences without any, you know, clue whether I'm going to publish this or not. It's just fascinating to see somehow in the scientific world, in the molecular composition, things which are different. And now this seminar, how this came together is actually, I watched Azure on the internet, you know, I do my coffee NMR kind of Google search, and here he popped up and I saw this enthusiastic guy talking about coffee. So I said, wow, I gave him a call and said, Azure, can we talk? You know, let's sort of, because I see the lack from myself, I have to bring the point across, I'm a damn scientist. And I have to go in the real world. I have no tracking with the real world. And I think that's where we came together, and that's why we want to combine. Azure will not have a PowerPoint, we have a real coffee here. So we're going to do samples, and we want you as sensors. You know, your tongue has a lot of biomolecules doing sensoring, going to your brain, and there's a lot of happenings everywhere. And we want you to experience this with your own tongue. And then we look at stuff we have already done with coffee. That you see, you know, that maybe we can combine these two worlds. And it's not only scientific thought, it's as well how people react to it. I'm sure Azure, when he gives his TED talk, you know, he has a lot of feedback. Yeah, Azure, we like it, but you'll be the guru, and how can you prove this scientifically? And I was like, yeah, okay, I cannot, because I'm not a scientist. On the other hand, when I say, oh, this coffee, oh, this is the same as, yeah, you're a nerdy scientist, you know. So we have now the two worlds here, and we try to somehow combine this. And I'm really happy have you, Azure, that everything worked out. And thank you very much for coming today. I really appreciate it.
Hello. Who drank coffee this morning? Raise your hands high if you drank coffee. Not that many. Coffee is the most widely used drug in the world, and I believe it's the least understood. Hundreds of millions of people every day drink coffee, and they're addicted to it. But I don't think they're addicted in a way that is bad, because coffee has positive effects on the human brain and the human body. Athletes drink coffee. They get a 15 to 20% increase in their workouts. People who drink coffee have an ability to better focus on tasks that they're doing. So once coffee is roasted, there are over 1,000 different chemicals that are created during the roasting process. Coffee goes from a green seed that we have here into mostly packaged product like this. But along the way, there's over 1,000 chemicals created between here. But what happens is once coffee is roasted, these chemicals start leaving the porous coffee seed immediately. 40% is lost after just 24 hours. 100% is lost after about 7 days. So if you're drinking coffee that is more than 7 days old, I call it dead coffee. Because the gases, so many of these chemicals are in gas forms, leaving the coffee bean. Those are the substances that you want to capture. Those, I believe, I can feel affect my brain and my body in very positive ways. And this is not something new. This is something that was discovered many hundreds of years ago. when the first coffee shops and people there's different legends on how coffee was first discovered, but when the first coffee shops in Europe were opening up in Vienna, in Arabia, in the 1400s, 1500s, people were feeling this effect. How were they drinking their coffee? They were roasting it in this form on a pan on a fire, and then grinding it and brewing it right away. They weren't vacuum packing it. They weren't saving it, oh, maybe we'll have it tomorrow. They were using it right away. And in many places in the world, this is still done. In the indigenous coffee growing regions, Ethiopia, they do a coffee ceremony. It's a sacred time. You sit down, they roast, grind, and brew it right there. In Guatemala, in Peru, all these coffee growing regions, this is what the locals do. So I'm not discovering anything. This is what's been done, but I'm just tuning in to a way to have my coffee in the same way that these indigenous cultures are having it, that I have found has a tremendous positive effect on me. So what we're going to do is we're going to try, and I'm going to do a demonstration here, and do it just the way that the indigenous cultures have been doing it for hundreds of years. But we're using the advantage of technology, of some machinery that will even give us a better result. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a demonstration and compare this coffee that I brought. This is from Bali, Kintamani. It's grown. It's 100% Arabica coffee. My findings have indicated it's not so much where the coffee's from. We tend to want to say, oh, this coffee from Jamaica Blue Mountain is the best coffee in the world, or this coffee from Kona is great, or when I was in Peru I had the best coffee. It's not so much where it's grown, because coffee is grown in very similar climates, regions, elevation. It's more about the process of how the coffee is picked from the cherry until it goes into the cup. Okay? So, we're going to use this coffee that I brought, and what I have is a machine that I'm currently have a prototype and want to test market. And what this is a modified hot air popcorn popper. Does it look familiar to some people? So for popcorn, so what you do is you put the popcorn in, turn the machine on, it pops the popcorn, and the popcorn spits out. This particular design doesn't work too well for popcorn. They've come up with a new design that most of the companies buy, but for coffee roasting, it's the best. And the reason is because there's air vents on the side of this machine. And this machine acts as what's called in the coffee business a fluid bed roaster. So hot air is heating up the seeds so they're getting evenly cooked, let's say, rather than being fried in a pan on a stove or in a drum, which is more uneven. Okay, so this is a modified adapter that I came up with, and I use it in order to keep the heat in and make the coffee roasting process easier. Now there's skins that will come off. It's chaff. We call it chaff that's blown from the inside of the coffee bean, because the seeds now that I put in are going to increase in size by about 40 to 50%. They're also going to decrease in weight by about 25%. This is part of a big change that happens with the seeds once it's roasted. So you'll see it's going to leave a little bit of a mess. Usually put a bowl underneath at home if you're doing it. And the coffee speaks. It makes a sound. It's like popping popcorn. It cracks. And that cracking is the water inside that expands the seed and makes a popping or cracking sound. And that tells me it's getting close to being done. Any questions so far? Yes?
Has anybody ever looked at the condensate? Has anybody ever looked at the condensate? Has anybody condensed the gas phase that's coming off the roaster?
No. No.
Has anybody ever condensed all of that and put it back on the coffee bean itself and used that as...
Not to my knowledge. No, because the big coffee companies are more concerned with packaging, and it's more about trying to preserve it as much as possible.
Because you talk so much about the aromatic effects and starting off and condensing that gas state, looking at that gas state, like giving that insight.
Yeah, I'm not aware of any studies.
That should be super easy to do. Peter, you follow the right?
Yeah, so I mean, we see the gases, you can smell them already.
You go by a roasteria in Italy or Vienna, you smell it one block away.
Yeah, right. So you hear the crack. So we're going to be able to do a few different things. The first will be, once I grind the fresh roasted coffee after it cools, and then grind this kind of Starbucks that I bought yesterday. I think my guess is that this was roasted probably last November. It's probably been a couple months already. It has the best use date by May 15th. So what my whole thing is advocating, if you roast, you grind, you do it right away. There's no packaging at all. And the good thing about the green coffee is green coffee gets better with age. It actually improves. So there's no risk in having a lot of green coffee in storage and stuff. Okay, so we're getting close. So usually at this point I want to check the color. You can hear the bottle popping, yeah? We have a bowl or a plate that I can pour coffee.
Because it's the same color as the other one.
Okay.
Dude, the other one.
Is the smoke detector? Yes. So it works, and smoke detector works.
Actually, it's a lot darker than I usually.
So in Bali, you have 220 volts on your
Yeah, it's the same.
Green seeds.
Yeah.
You said they get better with age. Any better requirement there? More humidity, less humidity, a little bit colder, a little bit warmer?
Of storing it or
Yeah.
Oh no, that's the biggest. Maybe the cup. There's a guy in Bandung. It's called Aroma Coffee, and since the 1930s, his father started storing coffee and using it much later. And he ages his Arabica coffee 8 to 10 years. And it's supposed to be amazingly smooth. And I want to go and talk to him. I haven't yet.
And he's storing it just in atmospheric conditions?
In a warehouse, in jute sacks, normal. There's no special dry storage or anything I'm aware of.
Is it still cracking? Yeah, I mean, the sound you hear is still cracking.
Yeah, it's really way too dark. Might be good again. I'm going to do it again because that is way too dark. And I need to time it. I usually time it when I'm at home.
So why don't we do this here? So obviously now it got a little bit too hot now, so we're why don't we do this if you don't mind? I'll do a little bit of my PowerPoints while you're now you see the process already. Yeah. So anyway we'll be a little bit late today and also by compressing the two things into one. So let me talk a little bit about the science. I don't know much about coffee. I'm a coffee user, like most of you as well, but really got interested as a good application to show some of our methods because obviously it's so popular. So now you heard already the coffee, and the seminar name is the sound of coffee. So you heard the cracking already. When you actually do in Google, you know, normally when I do the presentation, what I do, I say NMR coffee sound. And you get all the images and everything like we do the Google search as well. And in fact, when you look at this, you do coffee sound. There are people studying the cracking. You know, they have a microphone and they look at the time domain data of a microphone response. You know, somehow distinguish different coffees, which may be interesting. But the sound I mean today is actually not from the coffee itself. Well, it comes from the coffee, but it's really about magnetic resonance. So I will show here a few things, maybe a bit more general. You see, innovation or having new things to come. I mean, if you have new ideas, you make new inventions, but most of the things, innovation comes from connecting things. And that's what we're trying to do as well today, you know, connecting different areas. I mean, to me it's amazing, you know, from a phone, wireless, yes, to an iPhone, which is more a computer than anything else, you know, using current technologies. I mean, nothing new has been invented for an iPhone, which is just putting things together, the idea of putting a computer into a phone. I mean, it's genius. But a computer was there, a telephone was there. So, and I think this is really where innovation goes, huh? So now, magnetic resonance. You know, maybe anybody of you have heard about magnetic resonance. What is that? Huh? Sure, everybody, because in the hospital they have an MRI. And if you had something with your knees or, you know, some soft tissue, you will go into an MRI. And that really was the first revolution of magnetic resonance. MRI, a super application. Well, why is it so good, or why did it become so... Oh, the police is coming now.
There's a smoke detector up there.
Maybe we
It's very sensitive. We can continue.
Alright, so for magnetic resonance, this is a very nice example, medical application. Now every hospital has this. Why is it? Because people have problems they want to solve. Obviously our health is our closest problem, so that's why it's so successful. It has been driven. Now, in general, when we apply technology, we have to ask very basic questions. Actually, why should we do this? You know, why? I mean, for coffee, people say, are you crazy? Why would you want to do this? You know, have some MRI type of machine applied to coffee. Actually, either I like the coffee or I don't. You know, so my own sensory systems, aren't they good enough? I mean, why do I need all this technology? I mean, I taste the coffee, and you will see, you will taste it later, your sensors will tell you it's good or not, right? So why do I need technology to apply these? Huh? Well, there may be, and you're in food science, we can maybe not detect poisonous stuff. So there's a lot of stuff why we want to do science, and you know this better than me. So let's try to do something now with this magnetic resonance and coffee, just as an example. And again, you may do more food, there may be other areas. We're using now coffee as a very, very good and popular example. Huh? So what's the problem with coffee? And Azure, you know much more than me about this, but what I have Googled around, I know there are companies just involved in analyzing coffee. There's a company, Coffee Analyst, somewhere in Vermont in the US. They have a business model checking coffee, and look how they do it. They taste it, they use their biosensors.
Okay, say something about this? So this is called the coffee cupping. Has anyone heard of a coffee cupping? This is what the experts do. They go to coffee growing regions to sample the different coffees. The way they do a coffee cupping is they have something called a sample roaster, which is a small roaster like this machine that roasts, then they grind and brew it, and then they taste it. This is what the professionals are doing. Taste the coffee, whether they know whether they want to buy this farmer or that farmer's coffee. Roast, grind, and brew. Why aren't we doing that?
And those professionals, I mean, they have their biosensors. Now I know from my ear, for instance, when I go to the doctor, they make a frequency response of my ear, and it's degrading over age. Right now, the high tones I cannot hear anymore that I used to hear as a kid. So, what I'm trying to say, when we age, our biosensors go, and they may change as well depending on economical interest, right? If somebody asks this guy, maybe Nespresso will give us a good review for your coffee, how much you pay. So, I mean, can we trust these guys? That's the other question. So there's a lot of questions in coffee, consistent between roasts, as we see now. We obviously are not so consistent today, but all these questions, are asked. Now, why would we not trust these guys? Well, maybe they're unreliable, or maybe we combine. That's what we're doing today. We combine tasting and science. All right, let's look at our senses now. So obviously for coffee, tasting, maybe smelling, touching less, maybe seeing how the coffee is. But really, to me, I want to talk about hearing coffee. And now maybe you already know why I'm saying hearing coffee. And let's listen to a coffee now. And you have heard it here with the cracks. But I have another way of doing this. I have another way. If I go with the mouse here, there is a button. And if I click here, so what the heck is this? Doesn't sound like the crack. What is it? What is it? Well, it's the same thing. Like you go in an MRI. You go in an MRI, there's some signals from your body. All these signals are audio signals. What the computer will analyze are waves. And they are in the audio frequency domain. That means we can hear them. So in a typical magnetic resonance experiments, we hit, did you hear the sound? You get resonance, and you get something back. Now, here is a coffee, it's an Africa coffee, and we have the sound here again. Let's listen to it. And that's a pulse. That's an electromagnetic pulse I put into my machinery, and I get out a sound. So why don't we try and compare two different coffees? Let's see whether they sound the same or not. So let's do it. So my mouse skills are not that good, obviously. Alright, so let's go here again. So that was Africa. Let's repeat this, that maybe we can hear it. That was what we heard before. And now I have an Intensa Dallmayr capsule. Anybody hear a difference? Well, let's try it. So I do this, maybe you'll...
Higher pitch.
Higher pitch. Higher pitch.
A little higher, huh? Okay. It goes a bit, I think the young people can hear it, I may be too old, but for me, it really sounds the same, right? So, well, is that a good idea? I mean, it almost sounds the same. I mean, I put this to the same, what they call standard operation procedure. I got two very similar sounds. But we know better in science, and these guys are very old. This is 16th century. They found out how we can analyze sounds. Well, there is a thing called Fourier transform, and what you basically do, you take a signal, and you kind of try to see what waves are involved and how strong is each wave that you have, and I'm sure you have seen those kind of frequency spectra. But basically that's the same thing. This is just saying what frequencies are inside. Now let's see, we don't have this frequency inside there. Maybe we couldn't hear it. Or let's see, this is a higher frequency here. That means because I'm age, I cannot hear it. Maybe the babies can hear it. So in other words, if I analyze this sound with some kind of modern computers, I get something like this. So that's what we call an NMR spectrum, okay? So an NMR spectra I can do. And now, maybe we can compare the spectra with one another. And that's really what we're at now. That's what we want to see, and that's where Azure got excited as well. Say, hey, I can check. Now, is maybe what I produce and what is bought by Starbucks is maybe different. And I told Azure, look, I've done experiments. I did the red capsule compared with the yellow capsule. Well, I can definitely see this stuff. Now, you can ask the question, why? And I mean, that may be a few master and PhD theses, but definitely you can see things. Now, if you look at NMR or nuclear magnetic resonance or magnetic resonance in general, that's what people do normally, analyze molecules. Simple single molecules. This is a drug there, a blockbuster drug from Novartis in Switzerland called cyclosporine. Billion business. NMR has been used to really develop this. 11 amino acids, all this science stuff, what people did together. So, magnetic resonance is very, very popular for structures. But structure spectrum, this is a pure molecule. And this is the spectra of this pure molecule. Now surely you would say coffee is a smaller molecule and probably not as complicated. Very true. But can you imagine if I have a mixture, and a coffee is a mixture of many, many things. Very complicated. What I'm trying to say, if we do the normal magnetic resonance, we need to be pure and clean. Only one molecule. If I have two, it's already complicated. By the way, ICS has done a lot of good work trying to separate these things mathematically. There is a whole algorithm called BTEM, which people have tried to separate those things. So there's a lot of science actually going on here. The world is a mess. That's what we like. Now we have an example. You made a coffee and it's smelling, and these are all different type of molecules we inhale through our nose. So that's the real world. Can we do now stuff with magnetic resonance? And really, where the things are great for magnetic resonance, and maybe I'll stop here, maybe you're ready for the next thing, before we go into the technology itself, which I make very short. Don't worry, it won't be complicated. I'll stop here and let Azure continue maybe with the practical part of the...
Okay, so the reason I stopped it was, and really wanted to do it again, because when you roast coffee like this, black and burn, you're killing a lot. If the oils are now exposed, they become rancid, so this is not good for demonstration. You can see the difference in color, all right? But companies use a dark roasted like this because what it does is it kills some of the different flavors. Starbucks is known for using a very dark roast. The reason is because they get coffee from all over the world, not just one source. They want their coffee to taste everywhere the same in every Starbucks around the world. The only way they can do that is by killing some of the variety of taste that you get from the different areas. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, this is the Starbucks bag that I bought yesterday, unopened. And by the way, the packaging on these bags have one-way valves. Why do they have one-way valves? Because coffee's roasted, these gases are leaving the coffee bean. They need some way to escape, otherwise the bag will blow up, right? So they escape through the one-way valve, which allows all these gases to leave. It doesn't allow oxygen in, because oxygen would further deteriorate the coffee bean. After 7 days, after all those gases have left, now the coffee is susceptible to oxidation. That's why I believe it's very important to use coffee immediately after roasting. By the way, 40% of these gases are gone after just 24 hours. One day, almost half, 40% are gone. And over the next 6 days, the rest leave. Okay, so just open these Starbucks. What I'm going to do is we're going to be able to see the difference in the coffee when we brew it in this way, which is called a plunger or French press. We're going to grind it, and after I grind it, if you want to come up and smell it, because the 3 ways you can tell the difference is by smelling it, is by seeing the different reaction to the hot water, and then by tasting it. I'm going to use the same amount that I'm using with the green coffee. The button broke on my grinder, so I need a little special tool in order to I have to set going to be set the same grind size for both of these. We'll try to do it as consistently as possible. Okay, anyone want to smell?
Smells like stuff.
Yeah, you can see how dark it is too. All right, so I'm going to briefly clean out the machines once again. They have a cleaning crew. Okay, great. Okay, where's my... Okay, anyone else want to smell?
I smell for you.
We're going to put this in, let's, Starbucks logo is green, let's put it in the green. Okay. Okay, so now we're grinding the one I just roasted. And we're going to pour water on top of it. We can see they're both at the same time, and then we'll have our tasting. Wow. Smell that? Smell that? Okay, you can see the color's different. You notice with the smell, there's a lot more going on. Whereas the other smell, the coffee kind of smell that you're used to, is kind of flat and bitter. Whereas there's many of the different flavors there. I think the one word to describe it is alive. This is a live coffee. There's more going on here than this. This is what I call dead coffee. Old, dead, stale coffee. This is really a live coffee. Now, we pour hot water on both. And what I want you to look at is the reaction. It's a chemical reaction.
That one has more bubble.
This more of a crema. That's really more of a crema, more of a head on top. Yeah, it is more fruity because those fruity tastes are the first ones to leave the older the coffee gets. Those are the first tastes to go. Those more sour tastes. So when you taste it, people say this one doesn't taste so bitter. The bitterness doesn't develop. Everything's already developed. The difference is there's more going on here that rounds out. You just don't taste the bitter. There's so much going on that the bitter is masked by all of these other flavors. Whereas in this one, it tastes flat and bitter because all those other flavors have already left. So we're going to put this on for 4 minutes, and then we'll do a tasting.
So that gives me 4 minutes for a bit more slides?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So, you know, from the bench back to the slides, and I don't want to make it too scientific. Let me just show that what is really the advantage of an MRI scanner when you go to the hospital. It doesn't kill you. If you go to an X-ray scanner, it kills you. It kills your cells. You know, and the doctor asks you, how many times have you done an X-ray this year? Why would he ask that? He doesn't ask that when you go in an MRI, because it doesn't change the sample. It doesn't kill the sample. Most analytical methods are very, very tough on the sample. You burn things, you know, TGA, you burn things away. So, magnetic resonance is one of those who are very soft because we can shine an electromagnetic wave on our sample and it responds nicely. And we don't kill anything. Chemistry is still intact. So that's very, very powerful to tell how stable is my measurement. Let's say I measure now. Listen, I measure again. You would say it's the same. It's not. Every measurement, whatever you do, because we all work in above 0 Kelvin, is all different. The question is how different? And that's what we can determine with magnetic resonance. And I'll show you exactly this. And then we see the different coffees. Once we know how our measurement fluctuates, maybe a little bit, or maybe like this, doesn't matter. If our chemistry fluctuates like this, we can detect it. If our chemistry fluctuates like this and our machine fluctuates like this, I have no chance to see it, right? So that's exactly the idea. So here is now an example of what they call in the scientific community the aromatic region of an NMR. Huh? So where all the aromatics are. By the way, this peak is the coffee. So the height of that peak is coffee. So you can identify, a lot of people have done that already. So this is a typical spectra. Call it a fingerprint, call it identification, whatever you call it. But the point is, this is not only one spectra, this is 12 samples measured. 12. I just measured it, take it out, measure again, take it out, and when I did that, people said, are you crazy? Why are you doing this? I'm going in and out the same sample. Yes, I want to know what is my measurement. If you really look, this is noise here. It's not exactly the same. See, I can still see different colors, and that's my measurement fluctuation. If I know how stable that is, now my world is open for the real world, right? So let's do this now with more coffee. So a good friend of mine, when she saw me with this brown 5mm NMR sample tube called coffee, she said, hey, Peter, what are you doing here? I said, well, I do coffee. Well, I love coffee, you know. She was like Asher, coffee passionate. So she gave me different preparations, and one, she said, this is Africa Kacha. And I said, wow, sounds great, good name. I was told by a good friend that Kacha means coffee machine in Italian, something like that. You know, it's not really a brand.
It's a brand of, I don't know.
Did you hear Kacha?
It's a brand of espresso machines.
Exactly, yes. So it's not really a coffee, but you know, it doesn't matter how you call it. But then the second one was a sort of a combination, and Asher would know much more. 90% Robusta, 10% Arabica. I have no clue what that is. This is for the expert, but I measure it. And then I, put this into a coffee machine, with capsules, and I prepare the sample. So basically, you do a pipette, you fill this sample up with your coffee. This is now the coffee you drink. You put it through the coffee machine, like here. Now we could do an NMR experiment at Singapore Poly doing exactly this. And that's what we plan to do, Ken, right? So now, I did even in other countries, Malaysia, Starbucks, probably one of those, even in China and so on. Making a long story short, I wanted to measure a lot of coffee. And I was not easy on my sample, on my methodology. I heated it up and down, and just to make sure, I really have stable condition, I shake my machine a little bit. In other words, before I measure, I temper it as well. So the whole tempering process is part of the fluctuation, because you need your sample at a constant temperature. If I just take it out and always put the same temperature, well, if I heat it up from 20 degrees to 60, let's say, maybe there is fluctuation in there as well. So I wanted to challenge my measurement. No? So every time I put the same sample back in again, I would actually lower the temperature first and make the machine control it again, just to challenge my measurement. So, making a long story short, here are 207 measurements, okay, 207 NMR, or magnetic resonance spectra, from 10 species, 10 different sample tubes. Why? Yeah, I repeat it. I want to now show you really how different they are. And here are they all overlaid, a big mess, and you see they're definitely not the same, which is cool. But let's pick two now, and here is really the essence. So, I take two samples I measure, they're different. One is the Africa, and one is the capsule, the yellow capsule, this is and now you see the intense I measured 10 times, this one here is 10 times. This one is 12 times. So, you see that the difference in coffee, wherever they shift, may be very complicated, but you can tell that this is really due to the coffee and not due to the machine. Let's say I would not do this. I would not make 10 measurements. Nobody would believe me. They would say, well, they look similar, this is the coffee, yeah, maybe you did some mistake with your operation. But, because I'm measuring, and I measure the same molecules all the time. Now, they're not somehow, after a chromatograph, they're gone and I have to measure new molecules. No, they're the same samples. So that means I have proof now that the chemistry changes of these two capsules are real, and it's not my measurement. See, to know your measurement is absolutely essential in science. And measurement even influences some of the science, as we know as well. But here we have control over this. That means we can know that our measurement is stable. Now, If you show these to a CEO of a coffee company, they say, oh, it's also complicated spectra, you know, I'm not a scientist, you guys, spectra I don't want to see. So we have to make it simpler. And how can we make it simpler? By doing some massaging of our data. So we simplify. One way of simplification is what they call principal component analysis. I'm sure you have heard about it, you're using it even in your work. Basically taking those complex spectra of each coffee to one point. Two numbers, X and Y, you know? That's basically what it is. Principal component 1, principal component 2, maybe a complex number or whatever you want to call it. But now if you look, every one of our samples is measured, and you see this is the same sample. That means in this area, that's my fluctuation of the machine. So here, this is fluctuation of the machine. So if I have now something here, I can say, well, it may be in Africa, right? You know, if it's here, I know it's something different, that's for sure. Even if it's here, I cannot really tell much. I can say that possibly could be there, and we have to look maybe, but if it's outside, I know something is different. So if you have a production, for instance, that may be very interesting. Just online production, and maybe, you know, you hit it there, you have a good chance that this is good quality, but if it hits outside this circle, because if it's inside this circle, I know that's within my measurement uncertainty. And you can show this in 3D or whatever it is. So, the point is, in this law case against Nespresso, actually Nespresso sues a small company producing other capsules. And they made the point, your capsules, you know, we are the capsule kings, you cannot copy our capsules. And what they said, oh, you know, our geometry is different. So in other words, they argued with the geometry of a coffee capsule. Why not argue with the chemistry? And for that we can use technology like we mentioned. So this is sort of what I wanted to show you what we can do. So the key message really, we can see differences, and that's now what Azure is doing. With your biosensors, you should see differences. And can we show this now with magnetic resonance? And that's really what we like to do together in Singapore Poly. Maybe you know, do these kind of experiments. So have a taste at the coffee and see whether you can really see differences between the Starbucks world and the live world of Bali coffee here, freshly roasted. Any questions so far? That makes sense?
And if you're done with the glasses, bring them back, because I have a little more that I can share if anyone hasn't had it yet. So, can you notice a difference?
Any feedback on your scientific discovery today?
What's that? Now, what's different? What feels different? Bitter. Okay, so what I'd like you to try to see if you can tune into beyond taste. Try to see if you can tune into the energy of it. What feels more alive?
So what we like to explore now, you know, with Singapore Poly together, maybe connecting the dots with magnetic resonance companies, you know, doing projects together. Now this may not even be on coffee. Same principles. Now you're in food science, innovation and research. If you have ideas for your projects where you think this kind of technology can help, let Ken know, let me know. You know, because then we could maybe find out some new way of looking at things. Or even if you're packaging, how does the packaging change your things?
Questions, comments? Can you feel alive, or is that? I mean,
One of the major things is the smell is much more distinct. I mean, that smells familiar. That smells clearly more exotic. Okay?
Right. More going on. There's more there. Yeah.
Yes, that's why it's more bitter, right?
Way more.
It's, yeah. It tastes that way. And I think this is a common misconception. Because it's not roasted nearly as dark as I roasted that first batch. Maybe slightly darker than my other roast. But what happens, and we think strong coffee is bitter coffee. That's what we interpret as strength and more bitter. And the bitterness, it's still in the other coffee. The fresh roasted coffee still has bitterness. Nothing develops, right? So some of the industry says that these flavors develop over time. Nothing develops. As soon as it's roasted, it's deteriorating right away. So if we capture it as close to roasting as possible, we're getting more components that the older dead coffee doesn't have anymore. It's already gone. And what happens is we're able to taste these in flavors, and the Starbucks tastes like flat and then bitter. It doesn't have all this stuff going on. Whereas the just roasted coffee, you don't taste the bitterness because there's so much more that's filling out this whole flavor profile that you don't just focus on just the bitterness. So if we let the just roasted coffee sit for a month, sit for a few weeks, like the Starbucks, then that bitterness would come out. Because now all the other stuff would be gone. Yeah. It's kind of I think we have to retrain what we think about our knowledge about coffee, and also what we feel about it too. And it's hard feeling the energy component right away. But I've worked with sommeliers, wine tasters, who have a very finely developed sense of taste, and they confirm the same thing. They feel the same thing that I'm feeling. I think it just takes time to be able to tune into that and adapt to that. But it's telling me that there's more there going on than the older coffee. Something is being lost. I can feel that energy, and that's what I want to find out. What is it? How can we?
That's the key word now. We're slowly coming to the end of this, and that's really the vision we have a bit. That we can sort of see from different angle the same phenomenon. And if those of you who have now drank this coffee freshly roasted this afternoon, you should be much more creative. Maybe you'll write your paper this afternoon. So I really like to thank you for this, that you're coming, for your time. And I have two quick requests for you. First, have you filled in your name and email? Because what we will be doing.
This is not to mark your attendance, don't get me wrong.
It's not the attendance. What I want to do is send you a sort of a form, that you can sort of value this seminar, whether that was useful to you, whether it's a lot of bullshit, or these guys are just crazy. Whatever, you want to feedback, and I think it's sort of a multiple choice that we have a bit of a feedback, because I love to continue this Azure. I mean, this is really, we could do this in Thailand, in other places, I think there's a lot to it, and then I want to be more creative as well. That means drinking a lot of this freshly roasted coffee.
Yeah.
The second little request I have, let's say on the way out, that we could make a little bit of group photo of us two all together, then we can put it on our websites and, promote this a little bit. If you don't mind, we don't want to abuse you, but that's, well, maybe a last thing, I will put this on, yes, Mark?
wait until you get to the
Yeah, I will put this on the web as well. I have a lot more stuff here as well done, you know, so if, you know, I'm not going to go through this, but this will be all there. We have energy drinks, you know, there's a lot of stuff. Actually, there is the sound of energy drink, just to give you a bit of flavor there as well. Now this sounds a bit different. That's energy drink. Now, of course, the spectra will be different as well. But you see those little differences there you can see in your spectra. All this stuff you'll be able to download as well when you write your email there, and you know, I'll send you then a bird nest with the, you know, a lot of stuff here, tea, some milk in Thailand, and so on. Of course, a lot of people call me crazy because whoever wants to use a big NMR machine to determine the fat content of milk. There are other ways to do that, of course, is true. And that's exactly the discussion we have here. You know, is it really needed that we need science, you know? And I like the discussion. And I think it's a lot of fun. And I like to thank you all. And I like to thank Asia for really coming up here.
And there's more here. If you didn't get a chance to try it, please come up. And
So shall we thank Peter and Asia for this morning's talk?
We're brainstorming back here, something complementary perhaps to what you're doing. If one took, not to be able to fill in all of this, just try to imagine it. You take a long path-length IR cell, okay? And you would slowly start corrosive like you do. And you let it get to its end point. And all the time these gases are going through the long path IR cell. And then instead of taking it out, you just keep flushing it with dry air or normal air for a day or two. Keep measuring the IR. So you have a collection of a couple million IR. Until such point that all the aromatic component is dead, okay? Back to your dead part, okay? Very good chance, probably you can make a strong correlation between which of the components are adding to aromaticity. And if you have millions of spectra, and you only have maybe 100, 150 gas-phase components, you might start to be able to take all of that apart. So you might actually start to be able to start making a higher correlation between the intensity of the smell, how alive it is, etc., and dead coffee, simply by doing exactly what you did, except continue doing what you did for the next couple of days. And if you use a long path-length IR cell and you have proper optics and everything, virtually every single component will be detected. Okay? Virtually every single.
So see that the ideas pops up already. You know, I think this is exactly the discussion we need. And you know, with your experience, Asia, and combining this.
And in particular, there must be some functional groups which are particularly important here. Okay, and what you're definitely going to see at the function of time is certain functional groups climbing up and dying out very quickly. You might not know the entire molecule, but you know which functional groups are evolving in time. That would start to give you a fingerprint in another direction, and that's the direction that would be the smell.
I mean, that shows as well, I think, how little have been done. Maybe the big coffee companies do this kind of stuff, very possible, but they keep it in their drawers. Maybe they don't want people to know, because there's a lot of commercial interest as well, and to maybe shake this up a bit, you know.
I know that would be an easy experiment too. It would be very easy experiment.
Well, let's talk about it. We can get something going. Any other comments? Yes, Steve.
I would also like to see added to this experiment analysis with pure cocoa, because that also has a very high caffeine or caffeine black content. So it would be very interesting to see how the two compare.
Yeah, good idea. So we got a lot of ideas for Project 10, huh? So I think for Singapore Poly, you guys have a machine here. Well, magnetic resonance we're talking. I'm sure you have IR as well. So hopefully you guys will all support if we do some project. We're going to plan some projects together here, you know, exploring these differences, and hopefully there is support as well from course I can. Thank you very much. Thank you again.
Thank you. Shall we take a quick picture? Yeah.
Yes, maybe I'll put the